welcome to another edition of the We Talk Chelsea podcast, Chelsea podcast with three Chelsea 11 friends. I can just hear us in the background. Has clearly got a streaming playing on one of the others. So I can just hear the entrance music. A Chelsea 11 podcast, Chelsea friend. I can't even remember what I'm talking about. A Chelsea podcast, but three Chelsea 11 friends united for a love of football. Welcome, chaps. We are reviewing Chelsea versus Brighton at the weekend, and we also look at the preview to Manchester United on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday at Old
Wednesday, yep.
Trafford? Yeah.
Wednesday.
8:15
Um,
GMT.
8:15 GMT. Just for why the extra 15 minutes? That doesn't make any sense. Just a bit of an arse ache to get home if you're from London, isn't it? Anyway,
Yeah.
we digress. Let's head to it. So Chelsea managed to get 3 points on Sunday by the skin of our teeth. Let's face it. It wasn't particularly. Do you know what? We'll delve a little bit more into the game in detail, but it was a bit of a back and forth performance, really, overall, Charlie, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a performance that we've seen a lot of the season. In fact, almost a reflection of our season. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and I think that was the story of the first half. 2 goals, and then a red card, and then a bit of panic, a bit of tension, but we managed to get it over the line. And look, I said to you guys before the game, at this stage now, we can't have excuses for these players, for the manager anymore. We have to start looking at the table, looking at the chalkboard, and actually getting points on the board. And no matter how ugly they are, 3 points is 3 points, as they say. And the 3 points yesterday were worth more points than the game against Man City. So let's look at the positives in that sense.
Yeah, and Timber, it's definitely squeaky bum time, especially with that game, especially in the second half. You messaged me across like typical, we're going to lose it now, we're going to lose it now. But we managed to, close out, didn't we?
Yeah, really surprised at that. I thought they were on top for the majority of that game. I think they showed they have the same issues as us, not clinical enough for the goal. But like Charlie said, 3 points is 3 points. We got away with one yesterday, and I think it's just the story of our season, really. One game up, one game down. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I think we'll start as we usually do with the initial lineup, and Pochettino kind of has had his hand forced a little bit. We're having to start with four centre backs across the back line. We see Disasi stepping in at right back, and also Colwill filling in for a familiar position at left back as well. Badiashile and Silva. The only real main surprise, Charlie, was that we didn't see Cole Palmer feature for Chelsea. I think I think it was something to do with the knock or something along those lines. But it gave opportunities for Mikhailo Mudryk to come to the fray, didn't it?
Yeah, and obviously it's nice to see that Mudryk's getting a chance. Palmer we've relied on very heavily in the last few games, and good to see someone else gets a chance. The back line was obviously essentially before the game. The thing that I was concerned about was four centre backs essentially playing in four back line positions, but at the same time, I don't think Poch had many options there. Cucurella was suspended. Chilwell's injured, so it was natural that Cole would have to go left back. And on the right side, very similar situation with Reece James and Gusto. So I think all in all, if we were playing this on Championship Manager, if you like, I think we'd have probably gone about the same. If I don't know about you guys, what you thought, but I think it was about right.
I think with the four centre back situation, we look at the lineup, probably something we'll discuss more in detail. It kind of, in the long term, when you look at the crux of the game, I think it worked out in our favour when we did have that red card temper, didn't it? Because it kind of forced us, we had that centre back to kind of narrow up, and they were, effectively playing as four centre backs in one, weren't they?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. At first, I think we all expected it from last week, especially with the red card with Reece James. We knew he was going to be suspended this game. The Cucurella, I can't remember why, but again, it just looked like that it would be that back four. And you know what? Fair play. They all did well considering the position we were in. We were down to 10 men, and even in the first half when we started, we didn't look too bad when the game kicked off with 11 men. I thought Cole Palmer would have started instead of Mudryk, but like Charlie said, I think it was good that he actually was given a bit of confidence to maybe come into the starting lineup and show he's still an important part of this team. Because if you've seen like the counter attack, well, I think we'll talk about it later.
Mm.
That sort of thing we do need in this team, and yeah, again, like I say, just a vote of confidence to show that he can be relied upon when needed.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well. I think the main thing that when I was looking at the breakdown of the squad, is before the international break, there was rumours that we're holding off, and Cuckoo's potentially going to be ready, Charlie, before the international break, but we're holding off trying to get him um, into the first team. Even if it's an appearance off the bench, part of the match day squad, and we're still waiting 2 games after the international break to see Christopher and Cuckoo. Is that a cause for concern? Do you feel?
In my opinion, it's a cause for celebration, and I've said this before. Is that last season we made a lot of mistakes by bringing players back much earlier than we needed to, and also in desperate situations. So because because last year we were in a crisis and we had an injury crisis, we brought players back quicker than we probably should have done. I don't know this as a fact. This isn't a medical fact, but it's fairly obvious because there was injuries that reoccurred so many times with the likes of Chilwell, and that's still happening now, and especially Reece James, who are vital players to our team. And I think with Nkunku, I think he's we will rely so heavily on him because we don't have a striker, that actually there's not much point in bringing him back at the moment. It doesn't matter too much. And I think for Chelsea at the moment, the way that we're playing and the way that everything's going, the second half of the season is going to be much more important than the first half, if that makes sense. In terms of points, in terms of results, I think the first half is much more important in terms of the way that the players gel together. But the second half is where we're going to actually pick up the points.
Yeah.
Unlike Arsenal, if that makes sense.
Tim, but let's move on to the first half in this scenario. We can talk about the lineup. We've kind of forced his hand a little bit in regards to who actually started the game, Pochettino. But when we look at the first half, it's generally a pretty bright start from Chelsea. You go 2 goals up very early. That's one of the things you've been shouting on about Chelsea. We don't start particularly well, or kind of have the impetus to go in and score a lot of goals in the early stages, do we? But we saw a different side to Chelsea the weekend, didn't we?
Yeah, yeah. I think that was a big key thing. When I wasn't watching much of the first half, I had to go back and rewatch it because I couldn't find a live stream. You saw that we scored first, and I think that sort of, even with the Gallagher red card, as we were going to talk about, it meant at least we had something to hold on to. We weren't playing in desperation of, okay, now we've got to go, fully attack the other team. And like you say, if you score an early goal, it sort of breathes that confidence to maybe get more. And it's unusual for Enzo Fernandez to score a header, but it showed again like we were resilient in trying to get that first goal, and it paid off finally. So yeah, I was really happy that we were the team to score first.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy that Enzo Fernandez managed to get his first and second league goal for Chelsea. I mean, I think if you want to be a player scoring a header, you want the person marking you to be Billy Gilmore, don't you? He's probably the person that I want defending me, because in fact I can't jump. But no, yeah, goal in the 17th minute, goal in the 21st minute. Go 2-0 up, and both goals came from set pieces, didn't they, Charlie? It's kind of I think we've seen a few goals in the last few games that Chelsea have scored from set pieces, and it's something that we've been missing from our Arsenal for the longest time, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's a point that we've sort of made on this podcast. That we have a very one-dimensional way of breaking teams down, which hasn't worked basically. For so long we've had this way of playing it down the wings and grinding into a position where we can hit it across the goal, and then relying on a striker that we don't have to put it in the back of the net. And that's basically been our game, which doesn't work. We've had very few midfielders who can score from distance. We've had very few sort of big defenders who can score from set plays or decent crosses of the ball. And it seems like now things are starting to come together. We're scoring a good variety of goals. There's threat from every position. And of course, just having that means that teams coming to us will bear that in mind when they set up against us, which will again create more openings in the traditional ways that we score goals, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, Temba, the one thing that will need to talk about here, it's quite an obvious one, is Chelsea were down to 10 men for the longest time. And you mentioned it on the podcast, and you have done so previously. Chelsea experiencing quite a lot of disciplinary issues recently, especially in terms of yellow cards and needless yellow cards. You know, Nicholas Jackson, I think, was banned for a game for 5 yellow cards. I think after, was it 8 games or something along those lines for something very foolish,
Yeah.
picking up silly yellows. And we're seeing an example last week with Reece James kicking the ball away and giving away a needless foul. As well as in this game for Conor Gallagher, it started pretty lively. He wanted to throw himself around a little bit, but I think it just was a little bit too overzealous in his in his play in the first half. Do you think the captain's armband weighs heavy on certain players? There comes with a level of expectation of how to perform.
Uh, I think at this particular time, yeah, because I think we've alluded it to be before. It's the fact that we don't have any experienced leaders apart from Thiago Silva and Reece James, who we probably heavily rely on. And I think the maturity in the game and um, maturity within the game, sorry, that when we go through these spikes, we tend to not really handle pressure very well. We tend to sort of, want to battle with the opposition, want to take the game at 100 million miles an hour, where sometimes we should just slow the game down, take it at our own pace, or know when to be cynical and when to be clever and smart. And, I think that's something that the squad's going to have to learn. But that, again, comes from the manager. I think discipline has been a massive thing. We've seen many of our players getting booked for kicking the ball away, petulant reasons, really, and which has ended up for a sending off for Reece James. Gallagher making tackles he shouldn't be doing. Jackson needlessly picking up so many yellow cards that he missed a game, and he was told to do some sprinting, I believe, after training,
Yeah.
by the manager. So again, it just shows like there is a lack of maturity in this squad, and I think it's plain and evidence to see that there needs to be some tough conversations held on how to manage our issue, because I think we are the most booked team in the Premier League at the moment, and I think it's by quite a few cards as well. So I'll double check that in a minute, but like I say, I think a lack of maturity is definitely showing, and it showed again yesterday.
And Charlie, you were last season when we launched this podcast halfway through, the shit show that was last season, and you were a big detractor of like Chelsea's squad, over the bloated size of it, the mercenaries in the club, not really wanting to play for the badge, and you've got a load of young players coming around. Do you think it's put down to, is it a maturity thing, or is it kind of being a bit overzealous, and being a bit too, I don't know, over eager to have a performance? Because let's face it, we're still a very bloated squad. So once your chance goes, with these injuries and suspensions, are people wanting to throw themselves around? What do you think it could be?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because you can criticize a team for not putting their bodies on the line, and you can also criticize them for putting their bodies on the line and in the wrong way. So I think it's a bit of both. I think last season they were probably almost they didn't care. That was the problem. And this season they do care, but they probably almost care without. It's kind of the equivalent in the working environment of working smart and working hard. They're probably
Yeah.
working harder this season, but they're not working with their brains, basically. And that's something that they have to get into them. But that's a good sign. Look, at least they've got desire. I mean, nobody can question Gallagher's desire, I don't think, in my opinion. I think it's just misled sometimes. And that was a prime example yesterday. And probably the same with Reece James. I think it was just frustration. But when you see older guys getting sent off, I think that's where there's a problem in the dressing room and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
you can take examples out of other clubs who have had older, experienced players getting sent off for kickouts and stuff like that. You kind of know it's game over. But I think at the moment, yes, there's a discipline issue, but it's kind of a nice one to have. I mean, I'll give you an example. Arsene Wenger, when he first came to Arsenal in '97, they had a massive discipline issue. I remember Patrick Vieira used to get sent off 2-3 times a season. I remember Parler used to get sent off. They all did, basically. But ultimately, that's the same team that won, that were the invincible, or it was the basis that had the invincible squad. So it's not a bad thing. It shows some sort of desire and faith in,
Yeah.
that it's something to work on. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you both, I mean, this is probably something that doesn't strictly stick within the first half, was on Robert Sanchez. Robert Sanchez game for Chelsea. I think I think we've all agreed, the jury's still out for Sanchez. He's coming as the new number one. I don't think he was the first choice for Chelsea in terms of like the goalkeeper they wanted to bring in, but he's coming as the new number one. There's been some performances where he's looked a bit ropey, especially in terms of his distribution, but we saw some good shot stopping on display, didn't we, September?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's something that went under the radar on the weekend. There's quite a few vital saves he made, and especially in that second half, I think he was brilliant. Overall, his game was okay. He did make some, let's say,
That pass that went on it for his
heart-stopping
studs.
movements.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Especially there was one bit of play I remember. I think he passed it to Colwill. Colwill passed it him back, and then he passed it to Enzo, who was right in front of him, like literally in the 6-yard box, and he tried to turn on it, and it almost literally went to pot, and luckily he was able to escape from that. But things like that, I think we definitely need to work on more. We don't look quite comfortable playing out from the back, in my opinion, and he's a big part of that reason as well. Why we don't look comfortable. So that's something I would like to see us improve on. Apart from that, I think his general shot stopping was pretty decent. I don't think he could have done anything about the goals that went in. Maybe the second one, but it was side net. I mean, the first one, but it was side netting. So all in all, I think he had a decent game. I couldn't believe.
Yeah, I don't think you could put much blame on him for the first goal either, to be honest. I think that would put down to Colwill, I think, more than anything. Colwill's probably familiar with that player. He's been on loan to Brighton, so I'm not too sure when Buonannotte, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that, but I don't know when he joined the club itself. But he's very left-footed player from what I'm seeing from him this season. So the natural thing is to guide him down on his right. I think Colwill probably could have done more, but we can't fault him too much. Colwill gets first goal for Chelsea. He's quite reluctant to celebrate it. He kind of it's one of those things. It's such a weird situation, is it, as a footballer, because you're getting your first goal in senior football for a team that you've kind of been with since you were a boy, and it's against a club that you were on loan to last season. He looked like in the first 2 seconds he was very, very excited, Charlie, wasn't he? And then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh shit, I'm down that end by the shed end, right next to the away fans." It was quite a funny moment, wasn't it?
Oh, it certainly was. It's not something that I've experienced in my life, unfortunately, but but there we go. No, I mean it's great for him to get off the mark, and like you say, it was at that point in the game, it looked like we were onto something special, which ultimately we have been. But there we go. Yeah.
Well, the thing that we'll go back to the Gallagher incident in just a second, but one thing that's kind of sprung to mind with me is Moises Caicedo. Obviously, 3 of this Chelsea 11 were playing for Brighton this time last season. We brought in Robert Sanchez, Moises Caicedo for an astronomical fee, and Colwill back in off loan. I know he started out. I don't think we've seen Caicedo really turn up yet, have we? Have I completely missed a game where he's really outperformed? Because he kind of looked a bit pedestrian and a bit of a passenger in that game, Temba, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. I think we've not really seen the best of Caicedo. I don't think we've seen Caicedo much at all. I think he's another player who's been a bit like Gallagher, if you made that game. I was surprised he didn't get sent off with the amount of tackles he did. He was really poor, actually. I think the referee let him off there where he maybe wouldn't have wanted to send any players off. And I read that he didn't actually get a yellow card despite making like 6+ fouls that game. And there were pretty bad crunching fouls as well. So, I think he definitely needs to work on his timing, because we have not seen the Caicedo we saw last season at all, in my opinion. He just looks like a passenger in this team so far. He looks a bit out of place. I'm not sure whether it's all in his head or is it a physical thing. I'm not sure, but his timing seems really off. And like I say, some of his he's not really expressed himself. If you watch him on the ball, a lot of the times he tends to do a lot of 2-3 yard passes where maybe he's got from Brighton, but Brighton we saw a longer range of his passing where he was spraying balls left and right, moving up the pitch as well. Where here we're seeing him give the ball almost when he gets the ball straight away. He wants to give it away straight away. He doesn't want to, sort of.
Isn't that the point?
Play.
Isn't that? Sorry, Tim, to interrupt you, but isn't that the point of his position that he's supposed to just
It's like
get
an
the
anchor,
ball?
isn't it? If we're putting it in
Just
football manager terms.
get the ball, give it to Enzo. Enzo plays the pass. The quicker he gets it to Enzo, the quicker Enzo might have that pass on. Does that make sense?
Not
Sort of play to
always,
your strengths.
because I think he's a much more talented player than just an anchor. I think he like I say, we've seen him switch balls left and right during his Brighton career. I think that side of him needs to come out more for him to be able to be even confident, because like I say, his tackling so off, he's just giving the ball 2-3 yards. You're not really gonna express your confidence or sort of come into yourself if you're playing with sort of shackles on your back. I mean, we sort of seen it with Mikel when he first joined, where Mourinho told him to be like Makelele, which he wasn't. Eventually, he learned from it, of course. But if you're sort of playing with shackles on your back, you're gonna feel so restricted. Oh, okay, let me just do the simple and easy things, and the simple and easy things aren't even coming off at the moment, in my opinion. I think he just looks like a passenger in that team. So
Do you think Temba? Do you think Temba, if the options are there, he probably would have been dropped by now in favour for another player? If say Lavia
No.
was fit,
no,
Because
of the price tag.
And the other
surely
thing,
if you're not performing, surely if the price tag's irrelevant. I mean, look at Kepa. He's the world's most expensive goalkeeper, and he wasn't performing. And we brought in a player for, a 30% of the price that we paid for him in Edouard Mendy. Surely price tag is irrelevant if you're not performing to the standard that's expected.
I believe that is a case. However, I do think that he would have to drop multiple really bad performances for that to happen. As we've seen with Kepa, he was given so many chances, and then eventually, after 3 or 4 years? No, 3 years. 2021 with Son Mendy. Then Mendy came in and he was given a chance. Otherwise, I don't think in that first season, if Kepa was bad, we would have seen Mendy come in the next season. I think it was sort of, we'll see him develop, see how he gets on. We'll give him so many chances, and then eventually, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. At the end of the day, these owners will want to see their investment do well. Like I say, we fought tooth and nail in the last minute to sign Caicedo. Why would we not give our everything to make sure he succeeds at this football club? So I think either way, Caicedo and Enzo are going to be the mainstays in this team for the next 5 or 6 years, depending on whether they stay. But if they are here, they're going to be the priority in terms of starting two.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. Go on, Charles.
Can I say one thing is that do you not think that the way that football is nowadays is that you get a player like Caicedo, and ultimately this system probably doesn't quite suit him, because it would suit him better if you think about Makelele as an example. He was a one in behind three, for example, Lampard and two wingers, and sometimes Good Johnson and Hasselbank as an example, or two strikers, Crespo and Mutu, whoever it might be. And he was one of a three. And now Caicedo's in a two. Do you think that because of that might be the way that football is nowadays? You kind of buy players and just expect them to fit in, and managers are kind of second thought almost, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, but I think Caicedo was playing in a similar system at Brighton anyway.
Right.
So I think he's used to playing that sort of system anyway. Because I could be wrong. I'd have to really go back and have a look at it. Because
you can look on the screen now. It's the same.
Different manager though, isn't it?
Yeah.
De Zerbi, I think he had a bit of De Zerbi towards the end of his tenure, but I think he was playing in a similar system back then. So I don't know. I don't know how much can be attributed to it was quite a congested in terms in international fixtures, especially this autumn as well, because they had to get everything in. So I don't know how much if that's a factor, if that's an issue, if he's still getting used to that, playing, week in, week out, and then also turning up for international games as well. I've not been a professional footballer that's done that amount of travelling, but I do know that travelling is quite tiring. And if you're doing that, making flights, like long haul flights, back and forth at work, can take it out of you and take it out of your legs. So maybe it could be a whole host of reasons. This point the back end of last season, we were thinking, oh God, what's happening with Kukurea? Do you know what I mean? With Kukurea, when he's having his personal issues, didn't have the best season with us last season. I think we all at some point said we're just fed up with the mistakes. It's not as bad as it was as Kukurea was last season, but hopefully you can turn the corner with it. But it's just something that I wanted to ask you both. A question I wanted to ask you all as well is the second tackle from Gallagher. Now I have seen some debate about it online. Obviously, mostly Chelsea fans say it was never a foul because he took the ball. Let's put our unbiased head on. Like, Timber, was it a punishable offence? Because he took the ball,
definitely.
but it looked like he took the man first and foremost, didn't he?
Yeah. Rash challenge. I think a rush of blood to the head, like I say, should never have done that. I think in today's age, once you go to the floor, you 100% must be sure you win the ball. And even on a yellow, I can't imagine any player who would think of doing that, especially that early on in the first half. Like I say, he's just already been booked not too long ago. Complete joke of a moment, to be honest.
Yeah. Charlie, is that, for you? Yeah. I mean, I know you're old school.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the rule. I might be old school, but the rules are the rules, and then the rules, and it is, it's a punishable offence, unfortunately, and it's annoying because I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but it's just that's two senior players in two matches who have been sent off stupidly. I think this one's almost worse, to be honest, because it risked up to that point a pretty solid performance. The Reece James one was almost capitulation, which is as bad almost, but this one was just like sabotage. You could argue,
Yeah, I don't think it was deliberate. I think the problem was, he had four players in front of him. Yeah, I know what you mean, but we had four Chelsea players in front of him. Billy Gilmour was running into. He wasn't running through on goal, was he? He was still running in towards Thiago Silva, still running in towards Badiashile. He still had a lot to do at that point. I think it's just put that down to youthful exuberance, and hopefully it's something that Conor Gallagher could learn from. We're talking about challenges and everything along those lines. In the second half, we kind of saw, if you look at the momentum change here, a big change from the first tier. Obviously, no doubt due to that red card, let's face it. There's only like one area where Chelsea had any form of momentum here. If you look across here, in the 60th minute up to the 65th, 5 minutes of momentum and everything, all Brighton. And as we mentioned from the top of the podcast there, Tem, it kind of potentially, the red card potentially worked out in our favour in terms of a defensive standpoint, didn't it? Because, with the four centre-backs on the pitch, I think what we noticed, they all bunched up into effectively playing in the same position, trying to, put that low block on, which we see most teams put against Chelsea. And do you know what? I have to say, it's a tricky one because when you look at what we've done so far, we've conceded 13 goals in the last 5 games. And we conceded 2 in this game as well. But it's actually one of the better defensive performances that we've put on show, isn't it? In terms of, yes, we're still releasing shots, we're still getting off, but it was quite solid-ish defensively. Do you see improvements in that respect?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this because although we were compact defensively, I thought Brighton didn't make the most of their possession and chances. Especially if you look at that second half, the amount of possession they had. We were able to clear our lines very well in terms of staying compact and just getting the ball away. But however, we didn't manage to make anything of those clearances. We didn't hold the ball up very well. The ball just kept coming straight back at us. If you remember when we played, I'd can't believe I'm saying this, but if you remember when we played Barcelona at the Nou Camp, it almost felt like that. We were just clearing the ball
Mm,
for the sake of getting it away from our goal. Um, and it's something I think we need to work on in just sustaining pressure. I mentioned about the lack of maturity, and also I think this comes from the manager of knowing what to do. I thought Broja should have come on earlier because I think he may
yeah.
have helped with just letting that ball stick. Because there was a point I think Mudryk was up front and he had brought Jackson off. And
Mm,
like I say, when I was watching it, we were just literally clearing the ball to just clear the ball. We weren't aiming for anyone when we were trying to effectively clear the ball, and it just gave
mm,
Brighton the impetus to just really sit in our half and create as many chances as it can. But however, I think our defense remained really compact to make sure that we didn't give them too many goal scoring chances. So that's where I
yeah.
will say we definitely were commendable.
Yeah, I mean, if you see it here, 80% possession for Brighton in the second half, 14 shots, 8 of them on target, which, suggests they're either blocked or saved by Robert Sanchez. Charlie, are you concerned in terms of you know, the amount of the goals that are currently leaking through? I mean, could we put that down to a weak Chelsea defence or the calibre of teams that we've played against? Obviously, Newcastle, we were down to 10 men. Manchester City as well. Arsenal, we kind of threw it away. Are you concerned about the level of the defensive duty that I can't even think of the word. The defensive performance of Chelsea at the moment, especially in the last 5 games, in this really kind of crucial period.
Yes and no. I suppose it's a bit of a weird one because I was concerned coming up to this row of fixtures that we had a bad attacking uh, problem,
Mm,
and yet that problem's kind of seems to be ironed out, and then on the defensive side, it's kind of gone the other way. So
mm,
I don't quite know what to think, to be honest. I can't even answer that. But what I will say is that it's been a very rare occasion that we've been 3-1 up with 10 men and managed to ride it out in the last 12 months. I couldn't probably name one time that we've done that against a decent opposition
mm,
and managed to score a goal with 10 men and ironed it out. I think there has to be some positivity from that, even though it's an ugly result in the
yeah.
circumstances. We had no option. I mean, as soon as Gallagher got sent off, I don't think there was ever going to be some wonder goals that were going to be scored and overhead kicks, and we're all going to be celebrating a 10-0 Chelsea win. That wasn't going to happen. It was important
Mm,
just to get the 3 points over the line, and it wasn't going to look very good, and that's what we did in the circumstances. So there's actually more positive. There is a lot of positives. It's very difficult to look because it's kind of like watching a film, a depressing film, and going, "Oh, that wins an Oscar." Because at the end of it, you might cry, but actually, it was a beautiful film, if that makes sense. Or is that a bit of a weird cliche?
Mm.
I don't think that's a cliche. It's just it's a simile that I've not heard before, and I commend you for it. It's not something that I've come across, but I'm going to use that in everyday life. Charlie, I'm going to look here. So I think it'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the third goal and how that came to fruition. It was a lovely counter attack play from Robert Sanchez, rolling the ball out, had the whereabouts to get that ball rolled out to launch that counter attack through and sent Mudryk through on goal. And if you want a player against any player, you want Mudryk against Milner. Let's face it, he's used to it when he played against him at Liverpool in his first game. He had him on toast for that second half, and he's that player that you want to cross. And it kind of begs the question, you have to ask it: was it a foul? Because was it was it it's tricky because I watched the match of the day highlights after the game as well. So I watched the game and then I watched the highlights because I just think it's interesting to see people's opinions on it. But Jonathan Pearce was the person doing the commentary for Chelsea and Brighton game, and he was saying how VAR is a disgrace in this scenario. It should never been a given. It's ruining the game. And he actually said ruining the game that we love. And, there's elements where you could argue for that. And there's elements where you could argue it actually hasn't. It's actually improved the actual fairness in terms of results and how they should be. But I'll ask the question, Charlie. Was it a foul? Should it have been a foul?
50-50, I suppose. But it's one of these. It's not with this VAR thing and with refereeing decisions in general. They either go your way or they don't. that's the whole reason we like football as people. We like the fact that the fact that we're doing this podcast and talking about it is one of the
Mm.
reasons that we like football, because there's so much to talk about, and it entertains us ultimately. And yeah, for me, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those. It literally is. It could have gone either way. And I know it's the old cliche, but it could have gone either
Mm.
way. And thankfully, it went our way.
Yeah, I mean, Temple was when we look about the chat. I'm not too sure what they were looking for. Was it the clattering of the legs? But when you look at the arms for Milner or Mudryk, there, obviously Mudryk's got pace for days. Milner, he's 37 or something now.
Yeah, about
He's
that.
massively fit, but he's wildly reported that he aces every bleep test, which is fantastic for a man of his age. But also, he doesn't have that speed anymore. Um, but when you looked at the arms, it definitely didn't look like arm across the chest. It looked like hand on the chest to try and put just enough pressure on Mudryk so he fluffed the opportunity to do so. Would you argue that it was a penalty, or do you think it was a case of, if it was let's put it this way, if it's Thiago Silva against Joao Pedro or Matoma, would you be annoyed that the penalty was given?
Um, I'm not too sure. I kind like someone said. I'm not sure that's given halfway across the pitch where
Mm.
a player sort of shoves the one player out the way, and then the other player another player on that team gets the ball back. I'm not sure if Mudryk was actually very close to touching the ball if Milner had not pushed him and then clipped the legs. I think it
Yeah.
was a case of they microanalyzed that situation to the point where it sort of made them give the decision of, okay, there's contact, well then it is a foul, then it is a penalty sort of thing. I'm not sure in full time it really looked like a penalty. I'm not sure if
Mm.
Mudryk would have definitely got that ball. However, like well, like the decision was given, I wouldn't really have argued either way.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I want to discuss as well is you've been a big you've been very strong and very vocal in terms of Chelsea not being able to see out a game. And when you think back to that second half there, yes, we did concede the goal, but we conceded it was at the 92nd minute or something along those lines. Is
Yeah,
this an example of Chelsea kind of solidifying? Because Robert De Zerbi, he saw us for the taking. In the 57th minute, he brought on Pedro, brought on Matoma, brought on Gross, brought on Milner. He made wholesale changes to try and get at Chelsea. Matoma being, one of the best dribblers in the Premier League that we've seen in quite a long time, I'd argue. Um, are you impressed that we had that level of resilience to dig down and kind of eke out that 3 points? Because I think at one point we just said, well, we're just going to lose it now. As soon as Pedro scored, we're just going to lose. It's just the way it's going to be.
yeah, I did think that they would eventually get the draw, especially with the 10 minutes added on time. It felt like an age till that game was finished. However, like you say, I think resilience was a big key word there. Thiago Silva made a crucial block in one of the last minutes they
Mm.
played. I think they squared the ball across, and he just read it completely and cleared the lines basically. So yeah, I was heart in mouth moment there, and also when Colwill almost conceded a penalty. Can't remember, Brighton player crossed the ball in, and
Is that the one that they were arguing for the penalty?
yeah,
Is that,
yeah, yeah. So the cross came in, and if you didn't see this, Charlie, the ball came in, and Colwell's kind of put his hand up as it's hit his face, and it's gone out for a corner, and the referee's given an on-field decision to give a penalty straight away. Um,
yeah.
and then VAR has looked at it and said it's not a penalty, but the corner wasn't given, a goal kick was given. So that was the
Yeah,
confusion. I didn't quite
I found that
understand it.
bizarre as well. I found that really bizarre. I was driving we had a game that we played yesterday, and I was driving in the car on the way to the game, and I saw the decision. I was like, how is he given a goal kick in that scenario? Surely if it's come off his head or in his hand, it's gone for a corner. How are you given a goal kick in that scenario? It makes zero sense. And I think Brighton fans have every right to be aggrieved, but that whole cross in. I don't know why it was. I don't even know why it was sent to VAR. If I'm completely honest, because
Well, a referee had
not
given
not
a yeah.
he
Sorry.
gave the penalty, which I can kind of understand in real time. Do you know what I mean? But then also VAR had the ability to watch that back and say to him, "Hey, do you know what? It's actually come with his head. You should probably overturn it." Not say, "Hey, you should probably come look at the screen and delay the game even more," because it got to 105 minutes. This is the one
Yeah,
thing about VAR I'm not a massive fan of, is the delays. You could just
yeah,
rely on them to say, "Do you know what? Didn't touch his hand. We looked at this angle, didn't touch his hand." I thought it was absolutely bizarre. So Brighton fans have every right to feel aggrieved in that scenario, because who knows what could happen in that circumstance. They got that corner. Pedro scored from a corner a few minutes before, so it could have happened again. So it's absolutely bizarre in that sense, wasn't it? But yeah, 3 points on the board for Chelsea. We got march on forwards to on Wednesday to Old Trafford, and do you know what? I've never ever wanted an opposition player to find himself on the bench at any point rather than Mason Mount. I absolutely cannot wait for Chelsea to return, and I really, really, really hope that he is fit and able to play against Chelsea. No doubt that'll be when he scores a goal. Let's face it, it's going to be like that, isn't it? So let's have a look, and we'll discuss the preview for Manchester United versus Chelsea on Wednesday. Chaps, how are you feeling going into this game? Manchester United, they were, before the weekend, the form team. In the last 5 league games before then, they'd won 4, drawn 1. They're the form team on paper. They leave things particularly very, very late. But on the back of this performance against Brighton, we'll have returns from Reece James will be back in the lineup as well. We'll also see the return of Marc Cucurella. We'll have, fullbacks in that sense. How are you feeling about the game on Wednesday, Charlie? Are you feeling that it could be possible to steal some points there at Old Trafford? We notoriously have not done well there in recent seasons, have we?
Yeah, I mean, we need to. There's no doubt we need to steal some points there. It's an interesting match because I think both teams are going into that one. We're almost very similar teams in the sense that we're underachieving, but we're in a sort of transition, and we're in this similar situation. We've got a load of players that have cost a load of money and all this sort of stuff. It's kind of similar. It's a big match in the sense that if we can, and I've said this before, we need to start chalking points on the board. We can't keep having these sort of debates every week like we do, going, oh, was that a good performance, was that a bad performance? There's no more excuses in my opinion. Pochettino's, he's had a bedding in period. We don't have a massive injury crisis compared to other teams. Okay, you can look at that and argue a little bit, but in terms of big players that are out, we've got a pretty well full strength side. So I think it's there for the taking. I think it's important that we go there and at least get a draw. It has to be about points now. None of this, we had a good performance, but we lost 1-0 on a dodgy VAR decision. It has to be points, minimum draw to at least take points off Man United at the same time. But ideally a win, and let's actually start climbing that table like we know we should.
I mean, I'm scrolling down here and looking at the last time we actually managed to beat Manchester United. It was in the FA Cup in 2018 at home. But if we keep scrolling and I go through, it's been a while since we've beaten them at Old Trafford. We're looking
2013, I think. One Mata
2013.
scored.
Is it? Where?
Yeah,
There.
yeah.
So it's been over 10 years since Chelsea have won at Old Trafford. That's
Yeah.
they are like Spurs to us in the 90s. This is literally just, we are Spurs to them, sorry. Like, we're just absolutely, surely now's an opportunity for Chelsea, Timber, to take advantage of that. I don't think Manchester United are playing particularly well, if I'm honest. You look at players, I look at some of the highlights from Manchester United. Marcus Rashford is a player that doesn't look like he wants to even be on a football pitch. Martial, again, doesn't look like he wants to be on a football pitch. I mean, I'm worried because we've won a game and we performed so well against City. And on the back of that, I thought, okay, well, we're going to go play Newcastle and we can probably get something there. And then we got a pants pulled down. September, have I just got recency bias, or is there an opportunity for Chelsea to actually, look to break that 10-year streak?
It's again a difficult question because I think we have every right to feel confident, and I think Man United have every right to feel confident too because both teams are just in yo-yo form. I think we can lose one, win one. They can lose one and win one. I think it's a very interesting matchup because, like I say, both teams are full of errors. Neither manager has their best team at the moment. Doesn't know the best selection. Can't get consistency out of the team. So you can have that. But I think we're a turning point. I think we'll edge it. But Man United are at home. I think that's the big key for them. We're the
Yeah.
away team. We haven't won in so many years. However, we do play well when teams come up against us. When they push up forward, I think Man United do kind of press forward at times. That they don't sit back all the time. They like to adventure forward. Can we exploit that? I hope so, especially with their keeper's form at the moment. I would like to see us test him quite a lot, which
Yeah.
we have been scoring quite a few goals lately. So I'm confident that we potentially could score some goals. However, I do think they're very potent for scoring goals as well. As we know, they've got good players from set piece. I'm not sure if Casemiro's back.
No, he's
No,
still
no,
injured till
he's out.
January.
Okay. Obviously Maguire's going to be a huge set play for them. Yeah, so I think if we keep them quiet at set pieces and maybe limit those Fernandez long shots, Rashford long shots, we should be okay. However,
Yeah.
like I say, they do have a lot of individual talent, which I always say individual talent can win you games. They may not be a better team than us. I think we're probably a better team than them, but they have the individual brilliance that will save you from games, and that will be I think the key turning point of who can really just have that moment to settle the game, I suppose.
Yeah. Charlie, when you look at the squads available for Chelsea and United, where do you think the game's going to be won? If it's Chelsea going to win this game, where do you think it's going to be won? Do you think it's in the middle? Or do you think it's down the wings? Because initially when Tem was talking, I was thinking, okay, what's the next question that I could ask in this scenario? Mikhailo Mudryk had a good game against Brighton. I think Mikhailo Mudryk against someone like Dallo would be decent. He'd get a lot of opportunity to run in behind Harry Maguire. But if he's doing Wan-Bissaka, for me, Wan-Bissaka is probably one of the best one-on-one defenders. But then you have Luke Shaw back as well, and Raheem Sterling's going to be quite quiet as well. So where can the game be won for you, in your opinion? Is it going to be purely just set pieces?
Yeah, I think it will be that sort of game. I think it's going to be very much a bit of a scrappy game, not too good for the neutral. Probably some long distance shots from somewhere, and like Tem says, I think a lot of it will probably be down to individual brilliance, whether that's from us or from them. I don't think it's going to be a match that's going to be the game that I went to last season, if you remember, where we lost 4-0.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I hope not,
I
but
don't know
I
why you
don't
did that.
think. Well,
I still don't know why you did that.
no one knows why I did that, but I'm a mysterious man. But no, the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think we're in that bad a position as we were last season that we will capitulate in that way. It can happen, obviously. This is football.
Yeah.
This is why we watch it. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I personally think is that the midfield and long range shots, penalties, free kicks, corners, a lot of that's where the real threat's going to be. I think down the wing, we're fairly evenly matched with Man United, to be fair. I think that's their
Yeah.
main element of threat, to be honest, and that's our main element of threat. And certainly neither of us have got too much threat in the middle, as in strikers and stuff like that. So I think it is literally going to be up to sort of good organisation and that sort of thing, and individual
Yeah.
mistakes.
Tam, do you think it's going to be individual brilliance, individual mistakes, set pieces? Where do you think the game's going to be won and lost?
Yeah, I think Charlie's just banged it on right there. I think personally individual brilliance. I don't think either team is fantastic at anything, to be honest. I think both teams are very poor at all of the above. I think where they can beat us, I think, is aerially. I do think Maguire will win a lot of headers, a lot of duels, and he's. I would like to see the matchup against him and Jackson or him and Sterling if Sterling gets into central positions, or even potentially Cole Palmer, because I do think that someone like Jackson won't be able to handle someone like Maguire. So,
No,
like I
I don't
say,
either.
it will be interesting because as well with Gallagher being suspended, what do our wingers look like? Do we go with Mudryk and Sterling again? Does Palmer play out wide and maybe Ugochukwu come in midfield? So I think we'll talk about the uh, our predicted 11s anyway.
I mean,
However,
talk.
like,
Sorry, however,
and however, like I say, our front three or four will have to be quite on it because I do think, however bad their keeper is, their defense isn't too bad.
mm,
I just think that
yeah, the
Maguire
defense.
sometimes has a brain fart. Wan-Bissaka, like you say, is brilliant 1v1. I don't see anyone giving him a horrid time. I hope Sterling can turn up if he plays on the left.
Mm.
If it's Mudryk, I don't think Wan-Bissaka is going to have a tough afternoon, tough evening even. So yeah, like I say, it'll be interesting matchup, but I do think it will be a case of individual brilliance rises above.
Well, we talk about individual brilliance and not how good as a team. So Del Key poses a good question here for us: is what's your best 11 between both teams? Let's just go on the example that we're going to play 4-2-3-1, just for ease. So in goal, are you going Sanchez or Onana? Charlie,
Right, that one.
you nodded on the
Sorry,
podcast there. You need to talk. You need to say Sanchez or
sorry.
Onana.
I thought we were going to do an 11 versus. Okay. That's quite a good. Yeah, it's Sanchez definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
easily.
I'll go with Sanchez as well.
Sanchez again for me. Okay, let's go left back. Luke Shaw, or it's probably going to be Mark Cucurella.
Luke Shaw.
Luke Shaw.
Luke Shaw, 100%. Yeah, a million percent. Okay, centre backs. It's probably going to be Disasi or Lindelof.
If
Lindelof.
we're talking about fit players, probably Silver.
I said
That wasn't an
Disasi or
option.
Lindelof. It's not an option, Temba. You're making it up. Sammy saying,
Okay.
what do you prefer, bacon or eggs? And you're going, I like beans.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Okay. All right. So I'll go with Badiashile and Lindelof.
What?
Yeah.
What is your top? No, I gave you an option. I said Disasi or Lindelof.
Oh, right. Okay. All right.
That's the
Lindelof. Lindelof.
Lindelof. I'll
Lindelof.
go
Okay,
Lindelof.
Silva or Maguire?
Silver.
Silver. Easy.
Yeah, Silva. Right backs, James, or it's probably going to be Wan-Bissaka.
James.
James.
How are you going? You can't.
James.
He
Yeah,
paused
it's
there.
James. It's James. I got to try and remember the Man United team now. This is going to be the right thing. Ericsson's out, so it's going to be Casemiro's out as well. So
McTominay.
let's
Amrabat
say
and
Amrabat,
McTominay.
Amrabat or Caicedo.
Oh, well, both have been terrible this season, but I'll go with Caicedo.
Yeah, Caicedo. Just about.
Yeah, Caicedo for me as well. And we go with Enzo or Scott McTominay.
No.
Enzo.
Enzo.
Again, I'd say Enzo, but I actually think McTominay is actually quite underrated in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So then we look to the wingers position side. So we'll move on to the left. So Sterling usually plays on the left. Say Sterling or Rashford, which is an interesting when you pose it from an England perspective as well. So Sterling or Rashford.
On this season's form, Sterling, I'm afraid.
Garnacho. I'll put Garnacho ahead of both of them.
So there's a right side for a reason, you piece of shit.
No,
That's what I was going to
well,
go next.
okay, all right. Well, Sterling it is then.
You're making it up. Damn, Sterling. I'm giving you options. Yeah, Sterling for me as well. I think Rashford has been off the ball this season. Wasn't impressed with him at the weekend. Okay, Garnacho or likely going to be Mudryk.
I
Garnacho.
would go Garnacho easy.
Yeah, I'd say Garnacho as well. We agree on too many things when it comes to this side of things. And the number 10 position is probably going to be Cole Palmer. And who's probably going to play in that area for United? Bruno.
Mason Mount.
Bruno.
No.
Bruno or Cole Palmer.
This season, I'd have to go Cole Palmer.
Yeah, me too.
Cool.
Just on the effect on the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bruno Fernandez. You're both wrong on that scenario. And then Hoyland and Nicholas Jackson.
Phew.
I know this won't go down popular, but I'm going to go with Hoyland.
Yeah, and I probably agree. And do you know what? It's funny, isn't it? Because it just shows this debate how us two teams are just so off form and so random, and there's no these answers that we're giving. It's not obvious, is it? It's kind of on form and on reputation. There's so many kind of variations to these sort of teams.
Yeah. And when it comes to, I mean, for me, I'm going to go Jackson because I don't think he's a better player, but he scores goals this season. So I'm purely just go based on that. I haven't seen enough of Hoyland, if I'm completely honest, to kind of have a formulate a proper opinion on him. But it's interesting. That's the only areas that us three as a group disagree on is the number 10 and the striker. Let's move what we think is going to happen at the weekend. I think a key thing is going to cause a bit of a headache for Pochettino is the centre backs. They all perform particularly well. The problem is that there's only two positions as opposed to four coming up this weekend. Do you both see Reece James? I'm fairly certain Reece James probably going to come back in. But let's say, for argument's sake, do you think Cucurella is going to come in and take over from Colwill in that left back position? I'm throwing that
Um,
to anybody.
I do see Cucurella starting. I do think that the two centre backs will miss out on Wednesday. I think Cucurella and James will come back into the team, and it will most likely, in my opinion, be probably Silva and another, and I think it will be Disasi, just because Badiashile is just coming back from injury. Um,
Okay.
However, I would like to see Badiashile start myself. I would like to see maybe him and Disasi, because I think this will be a game of where Man United will try catch us out on the counter. So we'll need that pace, recovery pace, and I just think a 40-year-old Thiago Silva obviously is still very smart, probably way smarter than any defender on the pitch.
Mm.
There is some sort of physical attribute that goes with it as well, and I think 2 games in a week, will he be on it as if he was 1 game a week? I'm not quite sure. And Old Trafford's
Yeah.
quite a big pitch as well, so they'll have space to run into. So, like
Yeah.
I say, I think it would be wise to probably start your more physical players against a very fast attacking Man United team.
Yeah. I think it's probably going to be Silva and Badiashile, if I'm honest, because I think Badiashile had a very solid game for Chelsea at the weekend. Charlie, which centre back pairing do you think we're going to see? Do you think you agree with Temba? I mean, I do agree with you, Temba. I think Silva probably should be rested for this game. I think he's probably more needed for Everton on Sunday, if I'm completely honest. But Charlie, where do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, I say unfortunately, but I think Silva's going to have to play, and it's been a problem this season that we haven't chalked enough points on the board to actually. And I do think this season when Pochettino walked in, there was a plan for Silva. It was probably dictated to him that this was going to be probably his last season at Chelsea, and it was going to be a bit of a wind down, and there was going
Yeah.
to be a plan of action. But I think there's just been so much, and we've been through it before, so much rubbish going on in the background, and lack of points ultimately. So we need him to play, and these are big match. Every match is a big match, and this is the biggest problem. Every
Yeah.
match seems to be a big match.
So who do you think is going to pair with him?
Probably Disasi.
Nick. Just asking. None of us said Colwill. Do you not think that's a bit weird? Or we didn't go for Colwill straight in that scenario?
I don't think he's quite earned it yet. I think he's been quite poor this season. Well, obviously he's only 19 years old, but he's still got a long way to go, I think, to establish himself in that centre back starting 11.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
I
see.
think
It'd be strange.
I think he's been at fault for quite a lot of goals when you actually think about
Yeah.
it. There's a
Mm.
I couldn't name off the top of my head, but I could name the amount of times we've spoken about it where he's been at fault for goals. I know he's been slightly out of position.
Yeah,
Obviously Silva's been at fault for goals, but he's earned that in previous uh, and leadership qualities and things like that. But I don't think Disasi has been at fault for that many goals. To be honest, I think overall he's been okay.
yeah. Dale saying don't rule out Rasmus is due a goal in the Premier League. Yeah, he's not scored in the Premier League, so naturally Charity FC is more likely going to give it to him. Let's face it, we tend to help people out in that respect, don't we? I think we can all agree it's probably going to be Caicedo and Enzo. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that will probably be the two, and it'll be interesting to see if we go with a three again in midfield, whether it'll be Ugochukwu or maybe we play a 10 and two wingers, or a pure 10 like Cole Palmer.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I think Cole Palmer will play in the 10. If he's got a knock, I think it's given the opportunity to go back to fitness. I think he'll play as a 10, Sterling as well. And probably Mudryk. What do you guys reckon?
Yeah. I think Mudryk starts, and I think Jackson starts. Although I would probably like to see Breuer get some minutes at some point.
Yeah. I'd
I
like to
feel
see him
like
get
he's
some more
tenacity.
minutes. I want to see,
Yeah,
I want Breuer to come on a bit earlier in some of these games because I think
yeah,
Jackson kind of loses it a little bit. He kind of fizzles out a little bit in the game, doesn't he?
yeah. I think it's just sometimes his lack of awareness where he doesn't pass the ball straight away, and he wants to kind of over dribble with the ball. I think we see,
Mm.
obviously we see that with Sterling a lot, but he's a lot better at dribbling than Jackson is. And maybe it's part of the fact that he used to be a winger, of course, so he thinks he
Yeah.
still has that ability, and that's what he maybe he was brilliant at Villarreal before. So yeah, like I say, I'd like to see Breuer given more of a chance. I like his tenacity. I think he's got something different about him. He's got a turn of pace. He's quite strong, big guy as well.
And I
Decent
think, yeah,
aerial.
it's like you said, he's better at holding the ball up than
Mm.
Jackson is, which allows players like Sterling and Mudryk to come into play. So, be interesting. It'd be good to see Brozier. Yes or no question for you both. So just yes or no, no answer to this. Will we see Nkuku on the bench on Wednesday? Yes or no?
No,
No.
No.
weekend, I
You
think.
purely you think come Everton away? I think that'll be
Yeah.
the time to be interesting. Temper and I are gonna try and go to Everton away, see if we can get some tickets there. So hopefully we can do that. Might do another little video for you all. Let's go score predictions for this one. We'll go score predictions for Man United on Wednesday. It's very difficult to do a prediction based on we don't know what the team's going to be for Everton, but go on, why not? We may as well. What do you reckon the result's going to be, Charlie, on Wednesday against Manchester United at Old Trafford?
I think 1-1 draw.
The classic Timber.
I'll agree with Charlie. We'll go with the 1-1 draw.
Lads, I'm going 1-1 draw as well. It's written in the stars. It happens all
Right,
too
that's
very
it.
often.
That's it.
1-1.
Let's put the
We
bets
just
on
we
now.
just agree too much. We agree too much. And then Everton away. Obviously, Everton, playing some fantastic football under Sean Dyche, despite the 10-point deduction. I don't think any of us doubt that they're probably going to stay up this season. And Goodison's a notoriously difficult place to go. Very quickly, Charlie, what do you reckon against Everton? I appreciate we don't have all the players that are going to be available.
2-1 Everton.
Oh God, I'm not going to go to Liverpool just to watch that on my Timber.
I was literally about to say 2-1 Everton, but I'm going to go with the 2-0 Everton. Just that ground, it just brings back so many bad memories. I
So
don't,
why the hell are you trying to convince me to go to Goodison Park to watch this game?
because it's Chelsea. You just
It's an
have to.
away
Yes,
day,
fair
mate.
enough.
Just go. It's football,
Yeah,
mate. Just enjoy the day, mate.
Mm.
Don't worry.
yeah,
Don't
that's
worry.
true.
Don't worry about
That's true.
we've had
All right.
worse times than this.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay.
Are we?
I think you're both wrong. I think it's going to be 3-2 Chelsea because we can't keep a clean sheet to save our lives, and
Oh,
we score
okay.
goals for fun at the moment. So 3-2 Chelsea for me for Everton. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I appreciate you both for joining me. As ever, if you found us this evening, we are the We Talk Chelsea podcast. We do this every Monday at 9:30 p.m. Occasionally, we might do it post a game. But feel free to, if you just come across us, please hit the subscribe button. It's greatly appreciated. We've been live on YouTube and on TKS TV. Until then, we'll see you all next week at 9:30. We'll review Chelsea winning the game 1-1 against Manchester United as a point gained, because let's face it, any point is fantastic as a Chelsea fan. And, we'll talk about how Charlie and Timber are wrong at Goodison Park, and we'll discuss our away day, hopefully. Until then, we'll see you next week at 9:30 up the Chelsea.